The countries such as Ukraine, Belarus, the Baltic states, and Russia are famous for their beauty. However, the grim reality is that these women find it increasingly difficult to marry because of a severe shortage of men. It has even reached a point where some jokingly, or perhaps not so jokingly, suggest the introduction of polygamy. Where on earth have all the Russian men gone? Russia's population stands at approximately 145 million. In demographics, the sex ratio is measured by the number of men per 100 women. In Russia, that ratio is a staggering 86 to 100. This means there are 86 men for every 100 women, resulting in a total deficit of about 11 million men nationwide. Considering the global average is roughly 101.7 men per 100 women, Russia's imbalance is exceptionally severe. While some countries become female-dominated due to the mass emigration of men for work like Nepal or others, become male-dominated through the mass influx of refugees like Sweden in 2015, Russia's situation is different. Russian men haven't left the country in massive numbers. Historically, they are simply dying young. While the natural birth ratio is about 105 boys for every 100 girls, Russia's imbalance begins to manifest as men age. Historically, the shadow of World War II looms large. The Soviet Union lost up to 27 million people, 14% of its population, most of whom were men. However, even though that generation has passed, the imbalance remains. In Russia, it is said that men begin to disappear in their 30s, and by the retirement age of 65, less than half are still alive. The life expectancy for Russian men recently dropped to 64.7 years due to the pandemic, even 7 years shorter than men in Bangladesh. While women globally live about 2 years longer than men, in Russia, the gap is over 11 years. What is killing these men? The primary culprit is alcohol, specifically 40-proof vodka. There is a saying in Russia, below -40 degrees is not cold, and below 40% alcohol is not a drink. Russians use vodka to endure the brutal winters, a tradition that spread to the masses during the reign of Peter the Great in the 17th century. On average, Russians consume 18 liters of pure alcohol per year, twice the amount of Americans. The WHO warns that consuming more than 8 liters a year is life-threatening, with every liter over that limit shortening a man's life by 11 months. In 2014, a study in The Lancet revealed that 25% of Russian men died before age 55 due to excessive drinking. Alcohol-related deaths, including diseases and accidents, claim 500,000 lives annually. Smoking is the second great villain. In the 2010s, Russia had the highest smoking rate in the world, with over 65% of men being smokers. Even more shocking, 73% of male teenagers in Moscow smoked. Smoking accounts for 17% of all deaths in Russia, or 400,000 lives a year. Beyond these habits, Russia has the world's highest traffic fatality rate due to poor roads and aggressive driving, with over 20,000 deaths annually. Health neglect is also rampant. 60% of the population is overweight, and 25% is obese, often due to a reliance on cheap, unhealthy instant foods following the rise of capitalism and the subsequent wealth gap. Finally, there is the cultural factor of macho culture. Russian men pride themselves on taking extreme risks to prove their masculinity, a trait often reinforced by a long history of warfare. This real man bravado leads to reckless behavior and fatal accidents. Recently, the war in Ukraine has poured fuel on the fire. With casualties reaching 200,000 and up to 1 million men fleeing the country to avoid conscription, 10% of whom are high-level IT professionals. As vodka remains the only solace for the remaining men facing economic and emotional hardship, Russia's male population continues to dwindle, ensuring that this demographic tragedy will persist for a long time.